The M60 MBT was in service for many decades. It was first employed in the late 1950s when the US was in dire need of a tank that could fight the newest generation of Soviet armor. Now, more than half a century later, we can clearly see that the American engineers created a combat vehicle with almost infinite potential for modernization. This video is all about the venerable M60 and its progeny, from the earliest models to the most modern ones. Let's go. The year was 1957. A team of Chrysler engineers started to develop a new vehicle on the base of the M48, the most advanced pattern tank that was available at the time. 2 years later, their creation, the first ever American MBT, left the factory floor and got its own name, the M60. Appearance-wise, it looked very similar to the M48, but don't let looks deceive you. The engineers reworked basically everything. Thanks to a new diesel engine, the M60 had significantly more power than any of its predecessors. The front of the hull was redesigned into the shape of a flat wedge instead of an elliptical front. But the biggest new thing was its gun, the 105mm M68 cannon. It was an American version of the British L7, chosen after lots of test and much deliberation. Due to its firepower and performance, the new MBT made for a pretty good rival to the Soviet T-55 and the T-62 that made its appearance a bit later. In 1962, a new variation of the M60 was officially accepted into service, the M60A1. The frontal armor was increased. The tank also got a new wedge-shaped turret and a few less noticeable improvements. This vehicle clocked up several decades of service in the US Armed Forces and was also exported to other countries like Italy. The M60A1 received quite a lot of upgrades throughout the years. Add-on stabilization was introduced in 1972, adding, you guessed it, a fire control system in a two-plane stabilizer. Then, in 1975, there was the Reliability Improved Selected Equipment, or RISE, upgrade, featuring a new engine and transmission. In 1978, it was followed by the RISE Passive variant, with brackets for the mounting of ERA armor to give it a better protection against modern heat rounds. And while the regular M60A1 RISE is not in the game, the M60A1 RISE Passive is a proud part of the American tech tree. In the end of the 1970s, the American military received the M60A3, the most advanced model in the series. It integrated all the previous upgrades and also featured a top-notch fire control system with a laser-based rangefinder and a ballistic computer. A bit later, the M60A3 was outfitted with thermal sights. The tanks of this configuration were given their own designation, the M60A3 TTS. The M60A3 was in service for several decades, up until the mighty Abrams came along to replace it in basically all roles. But even though the American military last used the M60 in the 1990s, deploying them in Operation Desert Storm, these tanks are still popular and still in use in many other countries. For example, in 2011, a Turkish company called Standard Bio suggested a variant with a modern 120mm smoothbore gun, an autocannon, additional armor, and a brand new fire control system. Or take a look at the Taiwanese military. They still employ the M60A3 TTS and the CM11, which is a kind of a hybrid of the M48 and the M60. Finally, there was also a rather unusual vehicle in this family, the M60A2, armed with a shillelagh missile. It was also unofficially known as the Starship. The tank had a peculiar low-profile turret consisting of a large disc with a narrow channel in the center and housing a fearsome 152mm gun missile launch system capable of firing shillelagh ATGMs. Despite the futuristic looks of the tank, the Starship had a very short service life due to a number of shortcomings of the design and complex logistics involved in its production and maintenance. Still, a very interesting vehicle, though. Tanks of the M60 family stood the test of time. They won dozens of battles. They are reliable MBTs that served all around the globe and are among the most produced tanks in our history. And rightfully so. What was it like running into an M60 for the first time? What is your favorite M60 to play with? We're looking forward to you telling us in the comments below.